All right, so today we're diving into something that's been generating a lot of buzz lately, and that's Explainable AI or XAI. And we've got a ton of research and articles that you folks have sent us.
Yeah, this is a big one, and it's one of those topics that might seem super technical at first glance.
Right, like something only data scientists need to worry about.
But it actually affects all of us in ways we might not even realize.
Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, what exactly are we talking about when we say Explainable AI?
Well, imagine this AI is increasingly making decisions that impact our lives, approving loans, deciding what we see on social media, even playing a role in medical diagnosis.
Oh, no, yeah, I've definitely felt that with the whole algorithm thing. Like my social media feed is like a curated reality show.
Exactly. But here's the catch. A lot of times, we don't really understand how AI arrives at those decisions. It's like this black box where we put in some data and get an output, but the process in between is a mystery.
And it's not just about social media feeds, right?
Yeah.
Like think about getting denied for a loan.
Yeah.
You get a no, but no explanation.
Exactly. You're left wondering what factors went into that decision, what data they used. It's frustrating and can even feel unfair.
And that's just a minor inconvenience. Imagine the black box problem in healthcare, like an AI giving a medical diagnosis without explaining its reasoning.
That's a great example because the stakes are so much higher. And that lack of transparency is what we call the black box problem. As AI gets more powerful, it's also getting harder to understand.
So how do we crack open this black box? Is that where explainable AI comes in?
XAI is all about lifting the veil on those black box AI systems. It's about making the decision-making process transparent and understandable to us humans.
So it's not about dumbing down AI or anything.
Not at all. It's
Yeah.
about creating ways to trace back how an AI reached a conclusion so we can understand the why behind the what.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm already seeing why this is so important.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's not a simple fix, right? There are different types of AI out there.
You're right. There are different approaches depending on the type of AI. For example, there are white box models, which are inherently easier to understand. Their logic is pretty straightforward.
Like a simple equation or something.
More like a decision tree, where you can follow the path of decisions step by step. But then you have the more complex black box models, like those deep neural networks.
Those are the ones that always seem to make headlines.
They are powerful, but the internal workings are super intricate with layers upon layers of calculations.
So how do we even begin to explain those? It's not like we can just ask the AI to spill its secrets.
Well, not quite. But brilliant minds have been working on techniques to make even black boxes more interpretable.
Give us an example.
One technique is called LIME, which stands for Local Interpretable Model Agnostic Explanations.
LIME. Okay, I like it. It sounds refreshing. So what does LIME do?
It basically creates a simplified model around a specific prediction, helping us identify which input features were most influential in driving that prediction.
So instead of trying to decipher the entire complex model, we focus on one specific decision.
Exactly. We zoom in and see what factors contributed the most to the outcome.
Okay, that makes sense. What about other techniques?
Another one is called SHAP, which uses game theory to assign importance values to each feature in the model.
Game theory for AI. Now that's interesting.
It's a way to understand how each feature contributes to the overall prediction and gives us a score for each feature.
So like a ranking of which features were the most important in the AI's decision.
Exactly. It helps us see the big players in the AI's decision-making process.
So we've got LIME for local explanations and SHAP for understanding feature importance. It sounds like we're building a whole toolkit for tackling this black box problem.
We are. But even with all these tools, there's some serious challenges.
Like what?
One of the biggest is this inherent trade-off between accuracy and explainability.
You mean the more accurate an AI gets, the harder it is to explain?
You got it. Think of it like this. A simple model is like a bicycle. Easy to understand, but limited in what it can do.
Okay, I'm following.
Then you have complex models, like a supercar. Powerful and fast, but you need a skilled mechanic to understand how it all works.
So we want AI to be accurate, but also understandable. It's a balancing act.
Exactly. And finding that balance is a key challenge in XAI.
It makes you wonder who gets to decide what level of explainability is good enough.
That's a great question, and it really depends on the context. In some cases, like recommending movies, explainability might not be crucial.
But in healthcare or finance, where the stakes are much higher.
Exactly. We need to be much more rigorous in those areas.
So it's a sliding scale of explainability depending on the situation.
You could say that. It's an ongoing discussion and something that researchers, developers, and policymakers are all grappling with.
So while we're figuring out this accuracy versus explainability dilemma, Let's talk about where XAI is already making an impact. Where are we seeing real-world applications?
One exciting area is healthcare. Imagine an AI system that analyzes medical images like X-rays and CT scans to help doctors diagnose diseases.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about AI in healthcare.
But with XAI, we can go a step further. Instead of just a prediction from the AI, we also get an explanation.
So it's not just this image is likely cancerous, but also why the AI thinks that.
Exactly. It might highlight specific areas of the image that look suspicious, or point out patterns that match certain conditions.
That's amazing. It's like having an AI partner that helps you understand the reasoning behind the diagnosis.
Right. It builds trust between the doctor and the technology. They're not blindly following the AI, but understanding the why.
Speaking of trust, another area where XAI is crucial is finance. We all want to know why we were denied a loan or why our credit score took a hit.
Absolutely. XAI can shed light on those decisions, ensuring fairness and transparency.
So it's about holding these financial systems accountable.
Exactly. And it's not just healthcare and finance. XAI is being used in some pretty unexpected places. One example that stood out to me from the research you sent was in telecommunications.
Oh yeah, that one was fascinating.
Yeah.
Something about 5G and network slicing. I'll admit I got a bit lost in the technical jargon.
Well, 5G is all about speed and connectivity, and network slicing is this technology that lets providers create dedicated virtual networks.
Like dividing up the network for different purposes.
Exactly. Each slice is optimized for different applications.
So where does XAI come into play?
These network slices have service-level agreements, or SLAs, which guarantee a certain level of performance. But sometimes those SLAs get violated, causing disruptions.
So XAI is like a network troubleshooter.
Exactly. It uses machine learning to predict potential SLA violations and then machine reasoning to diagnose the cause and recommend solutions.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how XAI is being used to solve these complex problems in a way that we can actually understand. I think this is a good place to pause for now.
Sounds good. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into explainable AI.
And there's so much more to explore. We'll be back soon with part 2, where we'll delve into the ethical considerations surrounding XAI and some of the challenges that we still face in achieving true explainability. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of explainable AI.
We've already covered so much ground, from that black box problem to how XAI is already being used out there in the real world.
And one of the biggest challenges we talked about was this tension between accuracy and explainability, right?
Right, like wanting our AI to be both super smart and able to explain itself.
Exactly. And it's a tough balancing act because often the most accurate AI models, those complex, deep neural networks, they're the hardest to understand.
So where do we even begin to find that balance between accuracy and explainability?
Well, it's tricky, and there's no one-size-fits-all answer. A lot depends on the specific application and the potential consequences of getting it wrong.
It's the judgment call.
Yeah, and the stakes matter. Like in healthcare, if an AI is helping diagnose cancer, we need it to be as accurate as possible.
Of course. But we also need to understand why it's flagging certain images as suspicious.
Exactly. We can't just blindly trust a black box when it comes to something as serious as cancer.
So in healthcare, explainability is crucial, even if it means sacrificing a tiny bit of accuracy. What about other fields, though?
Well, on the flip side, imagine an AI that's filtering out spam emails.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
In that case, we might prioritize speed and accuracy over a detailed explanation for each email.
I mean, I don't really need a step-by-step breakdown of why each spam email was flagged. I just want them gone.
Exactly. So it seems like finding that sweet spot between accuracy and explainability really depends on the situation.
But how do we make that judgment call? Are there any guidelines out there?
It's a hot topic right now with a lot of debate about how to regulate AI and make sure it's used ethically. Some experts argue for stricter rules around explainability, especially in high-stakes applications.
Makes sense. If AI is making decisions about loans or parole, we can't just say, well, the AI said so and leave it at that.
Exactly. And these questions are only going to get more complex as AI gets more sophisticated.
So we've got this balancing act between accuracy and explainability. What other challenges are we facing with XAI?
Well, another big one is the computational expense. Generating those explanations, especially for complex models, can be really resource intensive.
So even if we have the techniques for XAI, there's a practical issue of making them work efficiently.
That's right. But the good news is that researchers are working on more efficient algorithms and techniques that can provide explanations without using a ton of computing power.
So it sounds like XAI is this constantly evolving field with new solutions emerging all the time.
Absolutely. And as the field matures, we're going to see even more innovative approaches to tackling these challenges.
So where do you see XAI heading in the future? What are some of the things our listeners should keep an eye on?
One really exciting area is the development of personalized explanations.
Personalized explanations. What does that mean?
It means tailoring the explanation to the specific user because different users might have different needs and levels of understanding.
So a doctor might get a super technical explanation of a diagnosis, while a patient gets a simpler version that's easier to grasp.
Exactly. It's all about making XAI more accessible and useful for everyone.
That's a game changer. And I bet it would really help build trust in AI systems, too.
Absolutely. And it highlights another important trend, which is integrating XAI into the design process itself.
So instead of adding explainability as an afterthought, it's baked into the AI from the ground up.
Exactly. When explainability is a core design principle, it becomes much easier to understand and trust AI's decisions.
This is all fascinating stuff. But I'm curious about the bigger picture. What does XAI mean for businesses, policymakers, everyday people like us?
That's the million-dollar question, and that's exactly what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll delve into the future of XAI and its impact on our lives. All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into explainable AI.
And it's time to really look ahead. What does the future hold for XAI? And what does it all mean for us out here in the real world?
Exactly. We've talked about what XAI is, why it matters, the challenges, the applications.
Now let's shift gears and think about those big picture implications.
One of the things that really struck me from all this research is that XAI isn't just about making AI more transparent.
It's really about influencing the entire direction of AI development, isn't it?
Totally. Like, it's about making sure that as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives, it's used responsibly, ethically.
And that it actually benefits society, not just, creates more problems.
Right. So XAI is not just a tech issue, it's a societal issue.
Absolutely. And that means it requires collaboration between researchers, developers, policymakers, even the general public.
Everyone has a stake in this.
Everyone. And speaking of policymakers, one thing that's becoming increasingly clear is the growing role of XAI in regulatory compliance.
Oh, yeah. The research mentions some specific regulations like GDPR and the Algorithmic Accountability Act.
Right. Those are prime examples. Regulators are realizing that we need more transparency and explainability, especially for AI systems that have a big impact on people's lives.
So XAI is moving beyond just ethical best practices. It's becoming a legal requirement in certain cases.
Exactly. And that's likely to accelerate the development and adoption of XAI technologies even further.
Because companies are going to need tools and techniques to demonstrate compliance.
Yeah.
And to prove that their AI systems are transparent and accountable.
Exactly. It's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
So with all this in mind, why should our listeners care about XAI? What's the takeaway message here?
I think the bottom line is that as AI becomes more pervasive, we need to be informed. We need to understand how it works and how it's being used.
We can't just be passive consumers of technology, right?
Right. We need to be able to ask questions, demand transparency, and hold these systems accountable.
XAI gives us the tools to do that.
It does. And it's not just about protecting ourselves from potential harm. It's about making sure that AI is a force for good in the world.
That it helps us solve problems and create a better future for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that this is a journey, not a destination.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, that the field of XAI is constantly evolving. There's always more to learn, new challenges to address, new solutions to develop.
So we need to stay curious, keep asking those tough questions.
Exactly. And that's how we're going to navigate this incredible AI-powered future together.
Well said. And before we wrap up, I have to remind our listeners that if they want to explore the world of AI even further, especially the fascinating realm of deep learning.
You should definitely check out my YouTube channel, Ian Ochieng AI. I've got tons of tutorials and insights that can help you get started.
Awesome. And in the meantime, keep those questions coming. The more we ask, the more we learn, and the better equipped we'll be to shape the future of AI together.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and stay curious.